Hey, how's it going, universe? Welcome to another semi-daily movie review. Today, we're going to be talking about the 1996 classic, action movie classic, The Rock. The film was directed by Michael Bay. Story by David Weisberg, Douglas Cook, and others. It stars Sean Connery, Nicolas Cage, Ed Harris, John Spencer, David Morse, William Forsythe, Michael Biehn, Vanessa Marcil, John C. McGinley, Gregory Sporletter, Tony Todd, Bokeem Woodbine, and others. The plot synopsis logline is: a mild-mannered chemist and an ex-con must lead the counterstrike when a rogue group of military men led by a renegade general threaten a nerve gas attack from Alcatraz against San Francisco. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Fucking, let me tell you something about The Rock. Let me tell you something about the fucking Rock. The Rock rocks, okay? I've seen The Rock so many goddamn times. I grew up watching The Rock. I mean, it was something, I think I might have even seen it in like the drive-in in night that summer it came out. I've probably seen it 15 times. I've watched it twice this year. Actually, because I watched it like twice in October for some reason. I don't even know why. I was just like in the mood to watch it, so I ended up watching it twice. And I was doing horror movies at the time, so I was like, oh, I'll film it and I'll throw it, kick it down the line. I'll have it to talk about later. And I just never got around to it. And I was thinking, I was like, oh shit, I'm in a state right now. It's like, oh, I watched some things, but I don't really want to talk about any of them. I just don't. There's not much to say, and I'm trying to put together my like best of 2020 list. So that'll be the next Zoobox Goes to the Movies, by the way, and that's going to come out when it can come out, unfortunately. But anyways, yeah. So I'm always compelled to watch it. Anytime it's ever on any streaming service, I watch it because I don't own this movie, surprisingly enough, and I don't know if I want to own it. Unless if they come out with like a boutique label comes out with like a super special edition of The Rock, I will buy it. But as it stands right now, it's just like a bare bones edition that I could get. And I kind of almost like the fact that like I treat it as if it's like cable back from when I was a kid. Like if this was on TBS or TNT or something when I was a kid, I would have just stopped the channel and watched it, right? So now whenever I see it pop up on a streaming service, it's almost like a reflex. I'm like, oh, well, I guess we're watching The Rock now. I guess that's happening today. Um, and it's Michael Bay's second feature film. He came from a world of music videos before this, and he had a pretty prolific and eclectic group of music videos. I mean, he did everything. He worked with the Osmonds. He worked with Poco, Slaughter, Styx, Vanilla Ice, Meatloaf. Did a couple Meatloaf music videos and video shorts. And then he rolls into Bad Boys, which to be honest, I'm not actually a huge fan of Bad Boys or even the series in general. I think they're okay. They're like whatever. But he comes out fucking swinging with The Rock. I mean, this was like peak Bay time. And they say this is where like the first time like you really saw a Michael Bay movie, and the way that Michael Bay would make movies in the future was The Rock. It has kind of like every element of what makes Bayhem. It's something he's never really been able to recapture either, because the balance is perfect. Usually he goes way too far in one direction, like especially like stylistically, he'll go too far in one direction, or comedically it'll be too far in a direction. Like, he's did like 4 or 5 of those fucking Transformers movies, and that's the problem with those movies. And then you can give like the first one a pass where he almost gets the balance right, and you're like, well, it's a movie kind of for kids, but it's also trying to appeal to teenagers and Arrested Development adults, but they're pandering. He has this thing where he's a populist filmmaker, and he's trying to kind of please the widest base possible. So it ends up sometimes it can be for nobody when you do that, because you're not giving any demographic like its due, right? The Rock kind of balances it all perfectly. Like it can satisfy. It's funny. It's got some incredible set pieces, great characters, great casting. I mean, the movie, one of the coups of the movie is the casting. It's chock full of some of the fucking best character actors to ever work. I mean, we're talking like, John Spencer, David Morse, William Forsythe, Michael Biehn, John C. McKinley, Tony Todd, and like the list just keeps going. It's incredible. It's like it's truly incredible, and in that sense, right, because it makes everything feel so well rounded and lived in. It feels kind of it gives like kind of the crazy story and the plot like some kind of credibility. It grounds it a little bit, and you feel like I totally believe that dude would be in the position he's in, right? Nicolas Cage, Sean Connery. It's a shame that they never did anything kind of after this because they actually have a great kind of chemistry and they play off each other really well in this movie. I'm surprised, or not really surprised, but it's maybe a shame that they didn't get to do like something else later on in their career. It'd even be cool to have seen them do like even a drama or something. But yeah, maybe who knows? Someday in the future, when hologram technology comes along, maybe they got Sean Connery's or brain in a vat somewhere, and they're just kind of cataloging it, downloading it into the internet, a la like Lawnmower Man. And maybe we'll see that someday. It'll be great. I'll pitch it. I'll be like, hey, can we cast hologram Sean Connery and hologram Nicolas Cage in The Rock 2? Even rockier, on rockier shores. Maybe we pick a different prison. Pick like San Quentin. Hey, I'm out there. I'm here, Hollywood. I'm here. Give me a call. But yeah, I love everything about this movie, though. Just the pace, the direction. It's the best thing, in my opinion, Michael Bay ever did, including like even you take Armageddon. Armageddon's another one where it's like this broadly entertaining, kind of populist action movie. That movie's okay. It's like I've always thought Armageddon was fine. I liked it a lot when I was like 12 when it came out. I was pretty into Armageddon. I think I even owned it on VHS, if I'm not mistaken. I owned The Rock as well, though. So there you go. But because I grew up in a household which we watched kind of just populist cinema, populist movies. We also we'd balance it out. Watch some artsy fartsy stuff, some dramas or whatever. But the good bulk of my diet growing up was genre stuff, action stuff, and like whatever was coming out in the theaters. You go down to the local corner store for $2, go rent whatever the latest movie came out. The Rock was one of those. Con Air, another one of this time, comes out a year after this. It's like the same. I think Jerry Bruckheimer also was the producer on Con Air, because Con Air has a very. Usually when you think of The Rock, you kind of reflexively think of Con Air. It's almost like a two-hitter. It's like it makes for a good double feature that night. If you weren't looking for like the quintessential, like cheesy 90s stuff, like you go with The Rock and Con Air, and Nicolas Cage is in both of them, and he's great in them for different reasons. I actually really love Con Air as well. The only critique I have of The Rock, I would say, is maybe it's like slightly too long. Maybe it's like 15 minutes too long. They should have been able to get this in 2 hours. That's a problem Michael Bay has had his entire career. The dude is very verbose, very overwrought. But yeah. And it's kind of it's an interesting thing, like even like the concept of the plot, right? This idea that like these kind of disenfranchised veterans, soldiers, kind of just decide to say fuck that. Like, our country left us behind. This would have been in the midst of a lot of like kind of turmoil with the like kind of veterans healthcare and veteran affairs and people getting screwed over. It's only like 20 something years removed to really the end of Vietnam. So like I think a lot of those things still were present, culturally. They kind of echoed because these guys are cast as villains. They're bad guys. They definitely are bad guys, but they're not completely without your sympathy, especially at some point. There's a great moment where they have kind of an internal fight. Ed Harris as the leader of the group, and he has kind of an internal problem with the rest of his dudes, and they kind of turn on him because he realizes he's like, no, of course I'm not going to fucking send out this toxic gas, this fucking poison into San Francisco. Obviously, we were never going to do that. They call their bluff. We're going to walk away. We're done. And they're like, no, fuck no. We're going to launch this thing. We deserve it. I think that there is maybe in some ways like it makes it too kind of morally easy. Like the question becomes very kind of straightforward. Like, no, good guys, bad guys. Ed Harris is the kind of one dude on that opposite end of that seems like he's slowly getting in over his head. Like he comes from this righteous position. He wants to take care of him and his men who he feels like they sacrificed quite a bit and they got very little in return, even in recognition. So it has a plot that actually is consistently engaging in that way, in the way that the story unfolds. Even the personal drama with like kind of Nicolas Cage's character and Sean Connery's character. Uh, who's the Stanley Goodspeed, John Patrick Mason. Like there's just enough there to give you kind of a sense of the stakes for them, you know? Like, and that's important in an action movie, especially in like these populist kind of big popcorn movies. It's important to ground it at least a little bit. Give me a little bit of something. They kind of they do a little bit more than pay lip service to it. Just helps you invest. It gives personal stakes to the movie because we have the world is on the line. San Francisco's on the line, but that's kind of abstract, right? Intellectually abstract. So you got to give us something where we can like at least feel that they want to do this for personal reasons as well. Like there is, you know, honor, protecting people, you know, just in kind of a broad sense, but for to connect with an audience, you really got to add that extra element of kind of personal touch. And I think the movie has just the right balance of those things to kind of make everything feel well-rounded by the end, you know? So I'm sure most of you have seen The Rock, right? The Rock is a classic. I don't know if I've ever met somebody that didn't like The Rock. Although I think I brought it up to my wife the other night and she was kind of like ambivalent about it. Ooh, I might have to contact a lawyer. Yeah, not good. Not cool, Sarah. Not cool. Anyways, yeah, that's really all I gotta say. You know, it's a good movie. I like The Rock a lot. I think it's one of the better action movies probably ever made. It's probably in my top 10 in terms of just kind of like populist, you know, action flicks, genre flicks. I put it up there in my top 10 for sure. It's a great one. And for whatever reason, I never get sick of it. I think it does have, I have some sort of nostalgia for it as well. You know, that's kind of in my subconscious. It's like pulling on a warm blanket, watching The Rock. But anyways, I don't know. How do you guys feel about The Rock? Did you grow up watching The Rock? Were you older when you saw it? Do you think it holds up today if you've seen it recently? Throw some of your thoughts in the comments maybe, and maybe we can discuss it further. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to know more about Zoobox, there's a bunch of links in the description for Facebook, for Instagram, for my Twitter, for my brother Dan's Twitter. Also, if you'd like to make a recommendation for one of these daily movie reviews or something for Zoobox Goes to the Movies going on in the future, we got some plans in the new year for that, so that's going to be back on track in the relative near future. I know we've got some... I'm going to be reaching out to some people to try to get some more episodes, and I want to make sure that show is weekly, just like the regular show. You know, I want to make sure it's consistent. Zoobox Goes to the Movies is the thing that I like invest probably the most of my own personal time in terms of preparation and stuff, and I really love to do it. So, anyways, with that being said, have a great day. Have the best day ever, and I'll see you next time.